What happens if the engine stops? We all freeze and die.
If you have hate in your heart, let it out.
Our press secretary gave alternative facts.
Look, I'm not racist, but...
You're pretty close to going to hell.
I am a strong, independent woman, and I will get on a table, because it's my right, America.
Boy. What up, this is Elliott-Carter, and welcome to the Intellectual Controverse podcast.
That contradicts what they believe, their walls immediately go up. It's again, like, we keep coming back to Christians and whatnot, but like you look at Christianity and homosexuality for the longest time.
It's been a big beef.
Exactly. The predominant thought process is that homosexuality is a sin and that it's an abomination, and these are all statements that I've heard people in the church use, and it's their way of just shutting down that mindset right from the get-go.
And I've always thought it was funny, like a lot of, not all of them, but a lot of Christians that want to throw out homosexuality, like overdo it, a lot of them have been divorced. And from the Bible I've read, God takes that very seriously.
Which version are you talking about?
God takes divorce very seriously.
Well, and one of the coolest things I've ever seen is, first of all,
marriage. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's just point out that speaking of divorce, like divorce rates within the church are as high or higher than divorce rates outside of the church. And I remember it was when Obama had passed some bill for, I think it was the bill where he made homosexual marriage legal. Obviously, people were raging on Facebook about it. And one of the guys I went to Bible school with, who was a mentor to me, got on to one of these threads and said, look, if you're not willing to be, like, you can't say that homosexuality or gay marriage is an obstruction to the sanctity of marriage if you're going to be equally as upset about divorce.
Nobody pickets divorce. Nobody, because it's such a normal thing. I personally, I don't have a problem with it because sometimes it's necessary. I don't have a problem with either one, divorce or homosexuality. My point is though, like, why is one worse than the other in your eyes? I don't get it.
It's the argument that we've had a number of times is that you can't pick and choose which you can't pick and choose which debate topic you're going to use to justify your point and then ignore ones that are on the same scale. Like,
absolutely.
Like you can't be, I don't know the word I want to use. You can't say like divorce is okay because ultimately I'm just not happy in my marriage, so I shouldn't have to be married to someone I'm not happy about, and say that that's not ruining the sanctity of marriage, and then turn around and say, oh well, two men that want to be married is ruining marriage.
Yeah, it's destroying everybody.
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I think once again, if we just remember, hey, look. All sins are the same.
Absolutely.
That's what's said. And we stop trying to judge certain things on certain levels, then we could just look at ourselves in the mirror and really be honest.
Well, and one of the things I told my kids when I was a youth pastor was that, like, don't ever judge someone's sin because it's not something that you deal with. So, like, I remember one time we had this kid.
They sin differently than you.
So what?
They sin differently than you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
We had a kid that stopped coming to my youth group because I don't remember if he was, like, gay or he was a pothead or he was something that, like, all of my kids didn't deal with. And I remember saying, like, look, if you're disrespectful to your parents, if you cuss, if you drink, whatever your sin is, obviously I'm not saying cussing and drinking are sins because I do those in spades. But again, it goes back to just because it's not something that you personally struggle with doesn't lessen it any more in someone else's life. And so
I think that's why, in the Bible it says thou shalt not judge, or it doesn't say thou, that's not what it says, but it does mention you shouldn't judge each other.
Yeah.
And I think the reasoning for that is because that nobody's sin, like your sins are different than somebody else's, but nobody's is more than to man, murder I guess would be the highest sin. That's man's thing, but God's equal. A murder is the same thing as stealing and stuff like that.
And the argument is that all sin is some action that creates separation between you and God. So if I cuss out Jemiah, the Bible even says, like, if I throw a curse at somebody, then that's the equivalent to me murdering him. And so if I throw out a curse word to Jemiah, but I don't know, like,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. I know the talk.
It's the argument that you and I have had about, like, let's take cussing, for instance.
Yeah.
If I come up to you and I say, man, I fucking love you,
Mm-hmm.
or I look at you and I say, bless your heart, but I really mean, like, I hope you go die.
Yeah.
Like, which one of those is wrong?
The wrong one would be the one that you said inside. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
It all comes down to motive.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
And I think you one time we talked, you brought up something Trevor Noah said.
It's one of my favorite clips. From
I
him.
love it, man.
He was talking about Trump and talking about he called it Pussygate. So we'll just which is why I love Trevor Noah, because
he's awesome, man. By the way, I love him.
Yeah, he just calls it like it is.
Right.
But he said in that segment, he said, "Look, you got two guys. One says, I'm gonna take my hoe out to dinner, and then I'm gonna take her back to the place, and I'm gonna say, hey, would you like to go out and smash it out? And she say no. I say, oh, my bad, no pussy for me.
Right.
But then you've got another guy that says, well, I'm gonna take this woman out to a nice dinner, and then I'm gonna take her back to my place, and I'm gonna slowly caress her genitals without her consent. Which one is bad? He said,
obviously, the proper gentleman is a rapist.
well, and that's what Trevor Noah said. He said,
obviously
neither one of these is ideal, but one is crass, whereas one is rape. And that's,
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, in the Sin Olympics, as I say, it ain't gonna matter, you know, if the both actions are wrong.
Sin Olympics, I like that.
Hey, that's where we're at. You know, we post up. Religion really is that big one, and we continue to post up to alienate everybody, or create separation between us and other people. But my question sometimes, I wonder, it's like, okay, once the Pope finally goes, you know what, we're just done with homosexuality, it doesn't matter, we're just going to accept them, and then people have to. What's the next beef for Christians that they're really going to be focused on?
Oh, it's going to be curly-toed people.
It's like I told you guys the first time. I saw that meme that said, I think in 30, 40 years, we're going to look back and be real ashamed of how we treated homosexuality. But, again, in 30, 40 years, we're going to have something else that we're going to have to deal with. Why? Because as humans, we're just broken by nature. Yeah. And so there's always going to be something we need to work on.
You know, it's I brought this up to my pastor. It was so funny. I'm not trying to call out atheists or anything, but there was something on South Park that had me, like, it really showed, like, the human nature of people. Like, Christians and Muslims and Jews, all these races, they fight all the time. And they had this scenario where they just abolished religion. And in the Cartman ended up going to the future, and he saw, like, everybody was atheists, and there was wars everywhere. He was like, well, what are these people fighting about? You know, because there's no religion. These atheists were fighting about what type of atheists they were.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just human nature. People are just going to fight regardless.
Correct.
You know.
Well, and South Park's good because it's one of those shows that, like, you watch it as a kid and you like it's funny and whatnot, but then you watch it as an adult. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're dropping some knowledge, yo.
Yeah, because like Trey Parker and Matt Stone are so. I mean, they're a lot like Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah, where they just call things like it is. And if it offends you, then good, because it means it's probably striking a nerve with you about something. But like,
that's where this generation is, though.
Exactly.
This generation is forget all the fluff. Just give us the truth.
Well, and that circles back to what we were talking about. Like, millennials are like, call a spade a spade.
Correct.
Like, like if you're a
and
bigot,
they won't be unapologetic about it. They're just like, it is what it is. This is what you are. Deal with it.
Exactly.
You know, and the older generation doesn't like that. They don't. Oh no! In my day, you would warm up to someone, get them tea first before you just call them a spade. No, you're a spade. That's what you are.
Well, and it's almost like a comparison thing. Like, okay, I'm a little bit racist, but look how active I am in my church.
Exactly.
Look what I do in my
That's why I put that in my intro. I'm not racist, but
and like where millennials, they're like, that's fine. You can give all the money you want to whatever organization, but at the end of the day, if you're a little bit racist, you're a racist. And
that's what it comes down
exactly.
to. You know, we talked about it before with the seafood place. I ain't gonna say nobody's name because I ain't trying to start no war or nothing. But it's one of those things where people have to look at themselves. If you have these feelings, then go find some people to talk to them about before you make a blanket statement, because it just shows how ignorant you are. And at the end of the day, it affects everybody. People who have went there, done business, felt like they were important. Like for me, when I've been in racist situations, when I've had friends that I thought would never say that, it did hurt me. But the way my mindset is, like when you talk about me not being as extreme, I'm not going to let you have power over me. I'm not going to let you know that
I
you're
envy
affecting
that.
me.
Honestly,
Because
I made a joke about that, but I envy that though. That's a great thing that you got.
It's tough.
Yeah,
that kind of mental toughness.
I bet it is tough
because you want to just slap somebody for being stupid
all day.
But you hold. The truth is, in all my interactions with people, you tend to hold more power over people, and you don't respond because they don't know how to take you. They're like, oh man, I know I screwed up, but he didn't really get me. Like, what's going on? And now, if we took a step back in every interaction, I think we would just be better people. Because responding like that, it doesn't. Okay, if I hurt your feelings, and then you hurt mine, we haven't accomplished anything.
No. That eye for an eye stuff works to an extent, but you're just staying on the same road. You're not going forward with it.
Well, and there's a quote. I don't know if it's a proverb or like not a biblical proverb, but like a proverb from a culture, like Yoda. Yeah, it's Yoda. But it says like if we practice eye for an eye, eventually everyone ends up blind. And so like,
that's good.
Like it's like you're saying. Like at the end of the day, if someone does something to offend me, the best thing I can do is go talk to them and say, hey, look, this is what happened. This is how I feel. Yep. Or I can just say, well, look, I'm just not going to do business with that restaurant, whatever, anymore. Because if you're going to promote those kind of things, but a lot of people, like you said, they want to be social justice warriors. Where they want to get on Facebook.
Shut it down!
Exactly.
Shut it down!
Let's get outside porch munchies.
There was something I read today about the shooting that happened, at a club. And they were flipping out because the club's like, we're going to change how we do this now. We're going to go back to what we were. And you got people in the boards like, you're trying to take away our club. And it's like, it's not your club. If somebody wants to change the way they do things somewhere and you don't like it, go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Spend your money somewhere else. We live in kind of like this airline thing, like when they canceled Spirit Airlines the other day and he was fighting the airport. Why are we, if somebody said, mind you not getting on this flight, all right. Sounds good.
I guess I'm not flying today.
The one thing I will say about millennials that they gotta work on is this point of this weakness.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. I've said a lot of good things about millennials. There's a lot of bad things.
I can't have my way. What? level 100.
I'll show you.
No. And two, the older generation that raised kids and started pacifying them. But I just think that's the one weakness in this generation because they're so bright and they can do so much. Because they won't take BS, which I love.
Well, and that was some. I forget who I was listening to, but they brought it up. Like one of the things about millennials is, that works really well in their favor is they're super passionate. Like when they feel something, like they're ready to go gung ho.
It's dangerous.
But on the other side, like when you feel something so passionately and you're mad, you're ready just to like throw bricks through the window or picket it or do whatever. And
they need to find out that balance.
Exactly. It's all about that
balance. That
passion,
but take back and let it soak and then put it in. Think.
Well, and think like long term.
It's very dangerous.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
it's very dangerous. It could lead to fights in airports. It can lead into people making mistakes just to do it. It's kind of like what older generation at times we've been taught to do things because that's what I was told when I was a kid.
Right.
But you feel like it's broken and it's wrong. Why can't we have a discussion about it? Well, because I've always been told that for the 70 years of life. Exactly. Well, the problem with this generation, they're so passionate to prove everyone wrong that you're going to get to a point where you don't realize you're doing what they were doing.
Exactly.
You're reverting back to this cycle of I'm not going to be like them. You are.
Well, and that's an argument that I had. A mutual friend of ours posted something about. I forget exactly what it was saying. It was talking about like older generations saying how millennials are always triggered and blah 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 blah. But then it flashed up like pictures of the white bathroom and the colored bathroom and the white fountain and the colored fountain, and it said like that's the most triggered generation. And me and a guy got into a discussion about. He said I have a problem with that statement because that's not the generation I grew up with. I feel like you're lumping me into that generation. And I said, well, okay, let's talk about like the 60s and 70s then. Like, what's the prominent thing that we remember about the 60s and 70s? We remember drug use, we remember free spirits, mass anti-war protests, and like, how is that any different than what's going on now? Except that we're doing it against the people that you voted for or whatnot. And so, like, it's another one of those things where we got to step back and take a look and say, okay, objectively, what was I doing at that age, or what was I doing there, or like, what is fueling this this activity and whatnot.
Yeah, this might go off subject, but you just made me think of something. I had a conversation with this lady at my church. This old nice lady. So
Bless her heart.
yeah, she. Let me just give you a summary of this lady. Every time I see her, she mentions some old black guy. She's a white lady. She mentions some old black guy that I've never heard of. And she's like, "Do you know this such and such a man?" I'm like, "No, I never heard of him." She's like, "Oh." And she's like, "Oh, he's this black guy." And I'm like, "Oh, you know what? I'm still trying to learn every black guy in the world. I'll get to him later." But she's so serious. That's what's funny about it. She's like 80 years old, but she said something along the sorts like, she was talking back to the Muslim thing. She was talking about how weird the other countries are over there, how they do weird things, and then we were making a point like, well, they look at us and look at the things that we do as weird, like say. The whole hat in the inside thing is so weird to me, and I was like, and don't get it twisted. Christianity had their problems with race back in the '60s in slavery time when they justified that. And this lady with a straight face said, "Race? What are you talking about? Like a horse race?" I was like, I am 20. I'm 28 now, but I was 27 at the time. I'm 27 years old. You lived that. You saw it. What are you talking about?
But the way she saw it was out of a window and it looked beautiful and the scenery was good. She didn't sit in the window where dogs were being sicked on.
Exactly.
It's perspective.
The blindness.
That's the problem that every one of us has. If you're not willing to go across that fence into the minefield and get that perspective, you don't know anything. I'm sorry. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care if people call you a genius. You don't know enough.
Or how old you are. I respect elders all day because I can, no matter how much knowledge I get, I can't, knowledge and what's the word I'm looking for? Experience. You can get a lot of experience from now. She has more experience than I'll ever have at my age right now, so I can't take that from her. But at the same time, I do think she lived in a box. Yeah. It's really sad.
Well, and it's real easy.
You don't know this black guy down the road? You don't have a meeting? Yeah. You live in a box.
Loaded.
I would have loved to meet her. She would have loved me.
Well, you see, like, what I see is like at least she's trying to like communicate with you.
She is, and that's why I don't explode. Like, what do you mean, Grace? You know what I'm talking about.
What you mean you expect me to know every black man?
Exactly. I calm it down. Yes.
The shotgun event.
I calm it down.
You don't know what it took. The person could have really been in the mirror, like having a speech, like somebody I say this to today. It's going to do something for their heart. So if we just flip out on somebody,
exactly, and that's exactly tough. Why I don't because. For two reasons. I don't want to be that guy that, overreacts and just looks like the angry black guy and they call the police. Second, I don't want to give her a heart attack. She might think I'm trying to...
Now you got other charges.
I just, I calm it down and like, okay, obviously that was an idiotic thing. You're still a nice lady at the end of the day. I know you didn't mean nothing by it. Still a pretty stupid thing to say. But I know it was innocent.
It's tough. I think the hardest thing for me when I was younger, as a teenager,
lost my face. Sorry.
Was you feel like as a person of color, you're always teaching people.
Yeah.
And it gets annoying to have to teach people. But
I'm glad you said that because I feel the same way.
It's annoying, and there are a lot of times that white people don't understand that people of color get frustrated because it's like I'm always teaching you things. You don't know this. But the way you come to me to try to learn is not the best way. Like you say really dumb things opposed to being like, hey, let's have a general discussion. What do you like? That's how I would start a conversation. Like, hey, y'all talk to the other, or do you know this guy? Like, they don't realize how bad it looks sometimes. And I think I had struggles with it as a teenager. Like, my mom would always tell me, there's sometimes where you're just going to have to teach people. You just are. Yeah. And be grateful for that because if someone can come to you and get that knowledge and it makes them better, then you've left something with somebody. But there are struggles that every person of color deals with in this country with that, where they get tired of teaching. They feel like, you know what, bro, I'm done for the day. I want to sit down. I want to just do what I do and chill and not have to teach anybody. And I think that's some of the narrative that sometimes white people don't understand. They don't understand that you're always having to be correct or be in a certain lane. And that can frustrate you when other people don't have to do that.
Man, what you just said might go viral.
Hey.
There. And it
hit me up.
Might be good for my channel, The Intellectual Controversy. That was good, man. I've never thought about it like that because I do feel like I'm constantly educating when it comes to the other races, not even just white people too. I've had to deal with other people, but I have felt that way, and it is gonna get tiring. Like, okay, at the end, can you just get a book? Can you just look it up? Like, why do I have to keep talking?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
That's how you feel. But the one thing that made me say that was I have a dear friend that she's white and she's older. And we'll have discussions like this to where sometimes the things I say she'll take it personal. Like, why did you say that? And I'm like, it's not a personal thing. When I say white people, it's just like when I talk to Alex knows that I'm not lumping him in a group with idiots, but that's how white people feel.
Right.
And the thing is that I think people of color are trying to make white people understand there is a subgroup that feels that way. And if we don't address it and point to it and go, yeah, they do exist, then you're just making